What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to episode 5 of Tallboys
and Trackmasters.
Hope you all are doing great this evening. Hope you all had a good weekend. How's your weekend, Trevor?
It was fantastic. I really regret not going riding Sunday.
So. It was a good time. It was a little bit cold in the morning. Our good buddy Jim Kwok from Pennsylvania rode his big Triumph all the way down.
I like riding a lot.
Yeah, it did like 90 miles. Warmed up towards the end of the day. Got to do some pretty good off-road kind of the second part of the day. And our buddy Sean Booth kind of led us around a little bit of Mannington and 100, did some back roads, some cool stuff, and actually got to ride over at the old number 9 slate dumps, which I've always seen it from the road, but never actually got to ride the bike over in there, and it was a good time for sure.
Sweet. I'll check that out sometime.
Yeah. I kind of wish we knew about it whenever we had the 304 detour the second year. We would cut out a lot of the road that we had on there, but nonetheless, great time. And yeah, good weekend. I can't believe it's episode 5 already, man.
Time flies.
It does. It really does.
It's been nice, something to do besides, waiting for riding weather to come back full time.
Yeah. Hope everybody's been enjoying it so far. I know we have. So yeah, episode 5, tool time.
Let's talk about Benford tools.
The greatest tools ever invented. So yeah, man, I think we'll kind of get it started. Maybe we'll kind of go over what our current setups are that we carry with us on our bikes, what we think works best for everybody. We'll start with you, then I'll kind of jump in afterwards. And then after that, I think we can kind of go over maybe our favorite breakdowns or trail fixes we've experienced in our riding time. So I'll leave the floor to you.
Cool. Well, I guess I'll just take it from a standpoint of likelihood of what repair you're going to end up doing. So first and foremost is probably going to be flats. I recommend carrying at least a 21-inch tube. I've had reasonable luck in the past with using it in the rear too for limping back home. I also carry a patch kit. If that fails, James has a good story about attempting to use a patch kit on Shenandoah ride one year. I do know that some heavy duty or ultra heavy duty tubes are made of some type of rubber compound that doesn't play well with like rubber patches and rubber cement. So that's why I recommend carrying at least 21. If I know I'm going to be on a lot of rocks or like way out in the middle of nowhere, I'll normally throw an 18 in my backpack too. And having something to inflate your tire with, I carry both a CO2 inflator and just a regular old bike pump. I know they make some of those high volume bike pumps that work pretty good. I think this was bought at a Walmart for like $15.
I have that same one too.
It's worked. I mean, I've changed a lot of flats here and there. There's a patch kit. This is just crap I keep in my Camelback, and some brand tire inflator. I think came from Rocky Mountain ATV&C. I have not used it. And then I carry short tire levers. If you are going to use short tire levers on the trail, I recommend trying a tire change with them, like in the comfort of your garage, because if you're out in the middle of nowhere, that is not the time to find out they don't work. I just got 2. They're like 6 to 8 inch, depending on ambient temperature. And I just keep them zip tied together. I keep them in a little handlebar bag. And, they're about the bare minimum that I would want for trying to change a tire. Yeah. We kind of touched on how stiff some of these Tusk tires and stuff are. Good luck. I would want full size irons for like a Tusk D Sport or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. It's not something we want to try to do on the side of the road.
For tires, tubes, etc.
Yeah.
So in order to get to where you can even change a tube, you're going to need something to remove your axle nut, front or rear. I have seen that happen where someone had, all the kit except something to remove it with. I know KTM's come with a kind of a weird combo tool that's like a front and rear axle nut and like a tire iron end. I started carrying a parallel jaw stubby crescent wrench. It actually works really good.
Is that one of the Walmart Heart brands?
It is.
I actually have those 3 or 4 different sizes. I use those at work, and they're actually pretty good for everything. I'm very.
I think they're $15. They're designed in such a way that it puts the bearing surface on the flats instead of the corners, and the jaws are parallel. It's pretty tight. It's not like the Harbor Freight bargain bin special. So I've had good luck with it. But they make those combo tire irons that it's a axle nut or a axle wrench and a tire iron all in one. They're lightweight aluminum. That works really good. Yeah. If I didn't already have some tire irons laying around, that's the route that I probably would have gone. But the most important thing is just practice. Like if you're going to be out, even with a group, you need to at least have a base level of knowledge of how to go about doing a tire change, especially. Rarely does it happen when, it's like it happens when you're most beat down. It's the last thing you want to do is fool with changing out a tube on the side of the trail. And sometimes it's just you out there. Sometimes it's you and, one other person. I know riding with a big group is always fantastic because it's everybody wants to hop in and help. And, but that to me is probably the number one most common thing that you're going to end up doing.
Yeah, definitely tube change. And it definitely speaks to being able to do it yourself. You might end up in a group with some guy that's never had to change a tube. And if you have that knowledge to help, that goes a long way. But yeah, just knowing your bike inside and out, maybe knowing a lot of the potential issues and reliability issues you may have with a certain type of bike and carrying specialty tools for that bike definitely helps out in the long run.
Well, that's huge. Probably the absolute best tool is preventative maintenance.
Yeah.
And I know we'll get into kind of some scenarios and stories of failures, but that is the most common theme is lack of maintenance or deferred maintenance or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So covered flats, you get your axle nut on and off, etc. Probably next is going to be able to adjust your chain slack. So you need to have something for your chain adjusters. We already covered axle nuts, so that's covered. If you got a bike with aluminum swing arm and steel bolts, I would highly recommend backing those out of there while they're still free and putting some anti-seize or something up in there. Yeah. I know especially KTM, Husqvarna, etc. are very prone to those corroding in place over time. So that's something to pay attention to. And then I carry a little tiny thing of WD-40 in my tank bag. And you can use it as a bead lube if you have to. That's pretty much all I dress my chains in. I don't actually use a dedicated lubricant on my sealed O-ring chains. I normally just soak them with WD-40 to keep the water and rust off of them. And I haven't noticed a significant difference in how long they last versus soaking it with, the gummiest, gooeyest chain lube that they make. So kind of on to just general stuff. James, I think you're froze up. Anyway, Jamie will get back. On to general stuff. I've laid my bike down and cracked a side case before. Put a decent sized hole in it. Huge saver is JB Weld. Sorry. There was a time we were riding, I think, up towards Aurora, and one of the guys I was riding with put his bike down and cracked the water pump outlet. And, cleaned it up with a file, degreased it with a little bit of gasoline and JB welded that thing back together. And not only did it get him all the way home to Goshen, but he proceeded to run that thing for the remainder of the summer almost with, a JB Weld water pump outlet. So I can't speak highly enough of that. They make stuff like pig putty, steel stick, pretty much anything like that. Any kind of moldable epoxy, I would say, is a really good idea to have on hand. Spare change too. I've seen guys JB weld a quarter over a hole on a cracked engine case and get home.
Yep.
And I mean, it's all up to your imagination. It's fantastic though. You just mix it on the back of a crappy credit card or something you got on hand with a stick and slather that stuff on there, and it will in most cases get you home.
Yeah,
I'm a fan of it.
I think it was Tom King and Jim when we met at McDonald's. They were actually talking about there was a girl that did some of the New England BDR stuff on a BMW, and I think it was a 1250. It was a big BMW, one of the ones that the cylinder head stuck out of, and ripped a huge chunk of the valve cover off on a rock. And they found like 5 or 6 different beer cans just kind of laying around, and JB welded the beer cans on and got it out of there. So yeah, JB weld's a must have in my opinion.
Yep. I always carry it. It stays in my backpack. And right beside it in my backpack is something that everybody needs to carry, is a decent medical kit.
Yeah.
Not so much for having Band-Aids and stuff like that, but I carry like Quick Clot or Bleed Stop, either or. Puncture injuries are a serious deal. I mean, there's been several occasions where I've come pretty close to getting speared with a stick, either through coming off my bike and eating dirt, or sometimes there's just stuff on the sides of the trails you don't see until it's right up on you. And always carry that. And then it's got kind of the basics like allergy medicine, gauze, some ibuprofen, general bandages and stuff like that. So I mainly carry it for having Bleed Stop on me all the time, just in case.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's something that might get overlooked by a lot of people, is not having a first aid kit.
It's one of those things that you never think about until the second you need it. And then next thing you know, you're scrambling to cut part of your shirt or something to, nobody wants to do that.
I've been on rides where guys have wrecked pretty hard and really cut themselves, fairly bad, and no one had anything on them. And the first time that happens, it kind of opens your eyes and like, I need to throw a quick, cheap little first aid kit in my bag.
I think mine was $15. It's waterproof. It's got a lot of stuff. Of course, you can put one together yourself for not a lot of money either.
Yeah.
Like I said, in my opinion, having a Quick Clot or Bleed Stop or something like that is a big deal. If nothing else.
Yep.
So kind of on to just general, odds and ends that you carry. I always carry a quarter drive ratchet. I carry sockets to fit pretty much everything. Riding a KTM helps a lot because everything is, more or less a standardized size for the most part. You need to have something that can take care of your triple clamp bolts, your lower fork leg bolts if you got them. Reason I say that is there's been at least 2 occasions that I've either ran my front end into a tree or a stump or something like that and got the forks cocked in the clamps. And the easiest way to remediate that is to loosen everything up except the top clamp and then pump the front end up and down with the brake held and get everything set back straight. Some guys can just bang it against a tree until it sets back straight. I haven't had much luck with that. I normally bang it, the opposite direction. But, if you're riding KTM, they love Torx.
Yeah.
There's a pile of stuff on those things that are Torx. I carry hex keys for every size hex, up to and including if you've got a set of bark busters that use like Allen key style attachment to the handlebars, because if you get your throttle tube or something fouled up with some dirt and you can't get things taken apart because you don't have anything on you to take it apart with, that's not a situation you want to be in. I pretty much carry something for every bolt on the bike. I also carry a spark plug tool.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I think that I'm going to need it on a regular basis, but that's another thing that, the moment you do need it, you very likely really need it, because chances are you've drowned your bike in a water crossing or something like that. And yeah. And then I carry 10 on one side, 12 on the other combo wrench. I mean, this is just like a cheap stamped steel thing that came with my Kawasaki stock toolkit. I carry some spare hardware, and it kind of changes. Like I'll tailor my toolkit to what bike I'm riding, like if my Kawasaki versus KTM, and I'll swap out like some spare bolts and stuff like that. And I also carry some hardware for like common pitches, like M8 by 1.25 and stuff like that, just in case somebody else needs one. It's paid off. I've had guys I'm riding with, they'll have the visor screws back out of their helmets, and both times I've had a thread to fit it.
Yep.
So that's been really helpful. I mean, like my toolkit's nothing fancy. I have not a lot of money in it. It's Harbor Freight sockets. This little quarter drive ratchets from Klein Tools, it was like $12 or something like that. It's really well made. You could get by with one of those nice little folding T-handles that Rocky Mountain ATVMC sells.
Yeah.
And the rest of this just kind of hodgepodge together from stuff I already had laying around.
That's one thing that I think it's kind of weird, in the entire market of everything that's out there for, dual sport. I mean, we're talking hammocks that hang off of a certain type of bike, or camp stoves that fit a certain rack. I mean, the possibilities are endless when it comes to accessories. I have yet to find one singular dual sport specific tool bag that has everything in it that you need. It's just really not out there, and I think that's kind of surprising to me, at least in my research. And it's what it always seems like, that you get maybe part of one that has maybe half of what you really need, or there's ones out there that just have way too much stuff that you're never going to use. So you're always ending up kind of putting it together yourself.
I agree. That is a big hole in the market, I've noticed too. And that's why Wright and Schoonover Industries are going to, sweep the nation with this hot new bike specific tool bag setup we're going to roll out.
I've actually really looked into it. I mean, for all that I knock on GPX, their stock little tool bag and tool roll kit was actually pretty impressive with everything that it came in. But the availability is just not there to buy that kit and maybe kind of tailor make it to certain bikes or add some stuff to it. And honestly, I just really don't have the time right now to do that. But I think that's definitely a market that maybe we can exploit in the future. We can find some good tools.
I would be interested. I know there's a couple companies, I think Motion Pro and a company called Enduro, ENG Duro, like an engineering and enduro mix, that makes some pretty sweet little like all-in-one toolkits. You got like your 8, 10, 12, 14, and some screw bits and all that stuff. But the problem is $80. I don't have $80 in the entirety of the tools, tire pump, everything that I carry. I don't have $80 in it. But one thing that the money was spent on, and I didn't buy this, Shiloh had bought this for me for my birthday one year, is a nice Leatherman with replaceable jaws. This to me is indispensable. Having a decent knife, a file is absolutely fantastic. Like I said, when we were up near Aurora, this is what I used to clean up and file the the release coating or whatever off the casting to where you get the JB weld to stick. Having like a serrated blade to me is really handy. Even a small saw, you'd be pretty surprised at what you can get through if you can cut halfway through it and then get around the other side and break it. This saw also cut a splint for AJ when he blew his knee out. And that made a big difference. But having a set of pliers and having a way to cut wires is a huge deal. There's 2 occasions that I personally have gotten crap wrapped up in my back wheel. Once it was barbed wire, and the next time it was like some leftover filter sock or silk fence type stuff from a pipeline job.
Yeah.
The thing with the barbed wire, actually 3, because it's done with grapevines too. But being able to get in there and get that stuff out of there is really difficult if you don't have the tool to do it. And if I had to spend the money on one tool and then go to Harbor Freight for the rest, it would probably be getting a decent Leatherman and, you know.
Yeah. Small things that have, small things that have multiple functionality are really, really handy to have in your tool bag.
Yeah.
Especially like a Leatherman or anything else, combo wrenches, things that can take the place of 2 or 3 items. You can compact it down to one. Really, really saves a lot of weight and saves a lot of room in your bag.
Yeah, we're going to get to the electrical tape and the duct tape and the zip ties.
Yeah, I'll let you finish up your tool bag, and then I'll kind of go through everybody's comments there, and we'll kind of go through them there.
Leatherman does make it's like a collapsible vice grip. It's called the Crunch. It's like $110, which is why I've never bought it. But it's slick. It is a do-all tool. It's got really good reviews, but the price is awful comparatively. While I got it here, if you ride a KTM, Husqvarna, etc., or any bike that has the tiny fuel filter that's in line with the pump, these are just a little bit bigger than, a long grain of rice. I carry 3 of them. I forget what micron these are, but they're so small that it takes a pretty minimal amount of junk to plug them up. And if that happens, you're kind of dead in the water. Even if you can narrow it down that it is that filter, if you take it out, you're now subjecting those tiny little holes and, sealing surfaces in your injector to whatever grit was in your gas tank. Yeah. I know some guys will run those pre-filter socks. I think that's a pretty good idea. But definitely if you ride a KTM, I'd suggest carrying a couple spare fuel filters just in case.
Yeah, there's lots of little things like that are definitely bike specific that, hard to find spare parts and things that you definitely need to just keep for that bike only. And, with all of us kind of, for the most part, switching over those KTMs, it's nice to have somebody that may have some extra parts like the fuel filters or sprocket nuts and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And you'd be surprised at just how much money you can extort somebody for when you've got something they really need and you're like 40 miles from nowhere.
Yeah. You got a flat rear tire. Well, bud, you didn't bring a tube with you. I've got one here. It's
sorry, buddy. No, if
sorry about your luck. I'll see you at camp.
Yeah. If we're going out somewhere, I mean, what's mine is yours. I carry tools for everyone else just as much as I carry them for myself. And I think that adds to being competent with, being able to do repairs and stuff, is being able to help, your buddies out of a bind or, you never know what you're going to get into.
Yeah. And I think something else to touch on too, if you're riding by yourself a lot, or maybe just you and another person, it's probably important to carry a lot more stuff with you, obviously.
I agree.
But if you can group up where you've got a good bit of people, it's really nice to, and especially if it's like a usual group, you can count on these 2 to 5 guys are always going to come and ride with you, that you can kind of spread the load. So one guy can carry, a certain size tube, another guy can carry another size tube, and you've got your bases covered for everything. Like there's very, very little chance that there's going to be something come up that we can't fix and get somebody off the trail. And I think that's a really big and important thing. It saves weight, saves cost, saves money, and makes the ride a lot better.
I definitely agree. As long as you got guys that you can count on above all else. I've gotten into that before with Jeeping, as, you don't need to bring an extra strap. I got straps. And then next thing you know, you're 30 feet short of making it to the only tree big enough to winch out off of. But yeah, I mean, if we're out in the woods or something like that, whatever tools and capability I've got, that goes for everybody. I mean, that wealth is to be shared.
Yeah.
I think Fred even goes as far as to carry like a set of 8-inch channel lock pliers, which are great for bending back brake levers, shift levers, foot pegs. I mean, it works out really well.
Yeah.
Which is great because then I don't have to carry this big pair of channel locks. But somebody mentioned electrical tape. I carry electrical tape, some Gorilla tape. I carry 18-inch zip ties.
Zip ties.
I try to spring for
amazing.
a little bit more expensive zip ties that are more likely to not snap when you go to cinch them down. Also carry some rebar tie wire. Any kind of malleable ductile wire like that can really help. I've seen some pretty wild fixes on ADV Rider with some, just basic stuff like that.
Yep.
Something that I do want to get is a test light, like one of the little pin test lights for electrical. But I guess that's kind of another point I want to make is, there are things that you can run across and might one day that you probably won't be able to fix, but the likelihood of it happening are pretty low.
Yeah.
Obviously, we talked about kind of preventative maintenance being the biggest, the most important tool. If you've got bikes that are known to have issues, like you're on a KLR and it's, Kawasaki never did anything about the doohickey. That tensioner mechanism, getting that changed would be a big deal. I don't know if Suzuki ever did anything about the neutral safety switch or neutral sending unit bolts or screws that were prone to backing out. Was that your mom? What about jumper cables?
That's Dad.
Oh,
that's the one thing I love this stream. It's fantastic for what we do. It's easy and simple, but not being able to see people's comments kind of suck. But yeah, the last two, the electrical tape and the jumper cables, that was my dad, Bill. Anything else in your kit that you want to go over?
I mean, that's really about it. I'll throw in like a Cliff Bar or something too in my bag just in case, and like some wet wipes for your hands. Once you're done changing a tire, your hands are going to be nasty and grody and all that.
Yeah, man, it's amazing. Like, obviously me with twin boys, I've got baby wipes out the butt, and I've always got a pack of baby wipes in my bag because they can do a lot of stuff. Clean everything. You wipe yourself with them. It is
better than cutting a piece of your shirt off in the wood.
Right. Certain downhills you go down, you might scare yourself a little bit, and you need to clean up. They're very, very handy to have.
So, I mean, I think that's the bulk of the kit that I carry.
Cool, man. Well, I guess I'll kind of go over my stuff then. I have a Nelson Riggs soft bag on the rear fender of my KTM, and that bag actually came with this Nelson Rig tool roll, which is it's compact, it packs down well, and it holds a lot of stuff. I've got kind of just the basic stuff. I've got a set of the kind of bigger and full size Moose tire irons. Got two of those that I keep in there all times. These are really, really handy. Got the nice plastic handle on there with the indentated spoon end.
Yep.
Got those for changing tires because, I mean, honestly, that's probably the biggest breakdown that you're going to have dual sport riding. I've got this pretty nice little Michelin pocket knife that I keep in there. I think it's actually got a file on it as well. Yep, it's got a file on there and a blade in. Just nice to have to be able to cut some stuff. Got a metric and standard set of foldable Allen wrenches. Fits in there. I've got a 10 and a 12 open end, boxed in wrench. Good for loosening up, like you were talking about, your chain adjusters.
Yep.
I've also got a 13 millimeter wrench, which fits some different stuff on my bike. And a pair of needle nose pliers with the cutter's end on there. Good for all kinds of different things. I've got this. This actually came out of the GPX tool bag.
That's from the GPX tool bag.
Yeah, this is a T-handle end that actually has like the socket ends on there, and there's sockets in this little box in here that correspond with that. That's 10, 12, 10, 8, 10, 12. I think it goes up to a 14. I've got this pretty handy collapsible screwdriver. You switch ends on there. It's got a Phillips end on one side and a flathead on the other. And like you were talking about before, I'm really a big fan of these combo axle wrenches here. This one here came from, I think this one's a Motion Pro. So if you look at it, it's actually cut to fit two different sizes on the small end. So this fits a 27 millimeter, which is kind of a standard universal size for everybody's rear axle nuts. On the front end, it's actually got a 17 millimeter. And then on the back end, I think it's a 15 millimeter. So it fits pretty well everybody's front axles. Very handy to have. I also keep a little thing of electrical tape and some baling wire in here. And then I'm not sure where, there it is. Then a thing of the 2-part epoxy JB weld.
Yep.
In my either my Camelback back or my front tank bag that I have on there, I always like carrying at least a 21-inch front tube. I've got my air pump. It's similar to the one that you have there. 21s are good because if you get a flat on your 18 or your 17-inch rear tire, you can stuff that 21 in there and get home.
Another word on tube is, if you got it, spend the money and get a nice tube to carry as a spare, and change them out. Normally, what I'll do is I will run a new tube as a spare, and when it comes time to do a tire change, if the tube that's in there is looking pretty wore out, I'll take my spare tube, put it in, and then refresh that with a new out-of-the-box tube. I know on one occasion we went to put a tube in a guy's tire and took a 21-inch tube out of a tube pouch on the front fender, and I went to unfold it and put my fingers in one side and out the other. So,
yeah, it's definitely important. Definitely important to make sure your spares are up to date and not dry rotted and ready to roll.
Yep, I agree.
Yep. So we'll kind of take a little bit of a break. We'll go through some of these comments. One thing I want to mention, we're looking for some sponsors. If you guys want to help out and sponsor this podcast a little bit, it's going to enable us to kind of go to the paid version of the StreamYard and do some different things. Save these broadcasts and kind of put them out on YouTube and some other platforms to maybe get some more viewers and some more people in the group, and allow us to make it a little bit better. So if you guys are interested in that, please comment and we'll get with you. It's I think it's $20 a month for the paid version. So if we can get something close to that, that would be amazing. And we'll kind of go through some of these comments here. I've got my phone pulled up so I can see who's commenting and everything. Darren Sizemore says, have you all ever used the Baja No Pinch tool? Personally, no, I haven't. I've seen a lot of videos of them. I like the little one that will fit in the bag with the little kind of rack and pinion setup, and it packs in small, goes down in between the wheel bearing faces on your tire, and allows you to push in very easy to not pinch a tube. Baja No.
That is the worst is, going through the process to change a tube and then pinching it as you're putting it back in.
Yeah.
Which is, we talked about the importance of doing it in your garage, getting comfortable with it. Most of the maintenance I do on my bike, I use the toolkit that I keep on the bike. That includes the oil changes and all that stuff.
Yeah, definitely get you familiar with your tools while you're doing it.
But I really would like to try that no pinch tool. I really like how it looks. The only reason I haven't is, the cost of it. And, you still got to carry a set of irons to get the bead off of one side.
Right.
So it would be another addition, but I definitely want to try one at some point.
Yep. Our buddy Rob says, we got a guy out of the woods after he pinched the tube using Gorilla Tape as a patch. It held for 30 miles.
Nice.
Yeah, Phil Swift with Flex Seal, Flex Tape, with Gorilla Tape, all that stuff is definitely handy to have, especially in a must-have situation. It's going down. Scroll down a little bit. Our old buddy Chad Johnson says that the cheap plastic ratchets from Harbor Freight are great for a tool bag. I agree with that. I actually bought my son Mason one, or actually I think it was my mom got him a little one for Christmas, and I'm like, man, that thing is handy as heck. I need to put that in my tool bag. So yeah, the little plastic ratchets, yeah, that's a thing that's not going to rust or corrode. And
yeah,
I mean, I think maybe the jury's out on how it holds up, but definitely something that's light and easy to pack. Dad says don't forget the electrical tape. Obviously, yeah, electrical tape, duct tape, any of that type of tape is awesome. And for those that didn't see, jumper cables. Yeah. I know some guys carry the little jump packs that have the tiny little jumper cables. And that's something that maybe, some bikes need that doesn't have a backup Kickstarter. I know on my KTM 500, I actually have the backup kicker on there, and it's nice to have. But yeah, if you have a bike that's electric start only and you may be out there by yourself, that little jump pack may be something to consider.
And some of the newer KTM and Husky bikes, they've done away with the kickstart on.
Yeah.
You can't pop start one without a specific capacitor that you have to hook in place of the battery.
Yeah.
It's something about the way that the stator rectifier or something functions. You can't just pop start one, just like you would an older bike.
Or you can be like me with the Recluse clutch in there, and you can't bump start it with a Recluse. Yep. So you're stuck. Definitely something to consider there. Mark says, Doohickey, Uncle Mike's Doohickey is up here for sale. Okay. Yeah, very good. Pick that up. Chad Johnson again says he has the ball, no pinch. It's good to go. That's good to know.
Thanks for rubbing it in our faces, Chad.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Alyssa says she's had a lot of issues with Craftsman ratchets after the third one rusting up, not working, replaced with a Blue Point, and haven't had issues since. Yeah, Craftsman stuff is definitely taking a downturn. That was the go-to maybe 25, 30 years ago, but a lot of that stuff's made in China. Probably came out of the Chinese spy balloon when it shot down over Myrtle Beach there, and they drug it out of the ocean for you.
I believe it.
Well, I can't kind of go on with that. I mean, heck, this is amazing. That's why I love doing this thing, man. I don't feel like we've been talking a lot long, and it's already been 38 minutes rambling on about different tools. So with that, maybe we can kind of move on to our favorite trail fixes or some, stories of things that have broke while we've been out on the rides and stuff. So I'll let you kind of go ahead and start out with that, and I'm sure you've got some good stories.
Well, I could write a book of the misadventures that I've not suffered, I guess, experienced while riding with AJ.
Poor guy's getting trucked through the mud every episode.
Well, if we're out on the trail, I'll do everything I can to fix it and continue to do so. But like I said, we were up in Aurora or Albright somewhere. Can't really remember the specific name. Latest bike
in Sheepers
outlet, and boogered it back together with JB Weld, and we had no intentions of getting it beyond a point that would just get back to like Fairmont, and proceeded to put a month or more of riding pretty regularly on it. So that really sealed the deal for me carrying JB Weld. Another, it's just I've changed more flat tubes than I can remember at this point. So that's.
Has there been a bias as far as you changing tubes to front or rear? Have you done more or the other?
It depends. Most of the punctures that I've picked up seem to be on the front, and most of the pinch flats that I've gotten have been due to me running too low of pressure on the rear. That, and I've had a rim lock back off, and I spun the valve clean out of the tube before. Really, until you said that, I really hadn't given much consideration to a bias between one or the other. I don't know if you've experienced that or.
I think I've definitely had more flat fronts than I have rears.
Yeah.
And I really wouldn't say it's more, pinch flats or punctures. It was really seemed like valve cores kind of dry rotting and just slowly leaking out. I did have one pinch flat on the XR650R down in Brandywine on the rear. But I mean, in all honesty, I've been doing this for 5-6 years now. As far as dual sports are considered, I can maybe count on maybe a hand and a half how many flats I've actually had. Now I say this, and the next time I go out, it's going to be nonstop flats all day long. But I'd say I've only had maybe 5 or 6 flat tires the entire time I've been riding.
I'm really surprised it doesn't occur more often than it does. Especially riding road, like that center strip where no cars travel or whatever, like debris accumulates there. It seems like you'd really start to pick up nails and screws and everything else.
Yeah. I think terrain has a lot to do with it too. We ride a lot of rocky stuff, so it's bound to happen. And like you say, riding on the road a good bit, you're going to pick up some glass or screws or nails or what have you. But other than AJ, any other fun or interesting breakdowns you've experienced?
Not really off the top of my head. Nothing really sticks out. Things have been pretty good. I rode with a good number of guys for a good number of miles, and for the most part, the breakdowns have been sporadic and few and far between. Saying breakdown is in like something that we have to stop the show and fix immediately.
Yeah, I've been around a vast majority of different groups of riders, all over the place, all over the state, all over the East Coast. And all things considered, I'm kind of the same camp there. I haven't really experienced anything that was like out of the ordinary, completely catastrophic. Definitely have a few stories. I know we got one comment here. And yeah, Nick Hall broke foot peg off his KLR during the first ever 304 detour, and was able to get across town and have a guy weld it back up for him. I know I watched my dad. We went on a ride with Tom King and come through 5 Points outside of Wallace. And I think it was like halfway up the one big hill coming out of there, like towards the town of Wallace. The hill was really slick and had a lot of water and mud and stuff kind of running down it. And he made it about 3/4 of the way up and dropped the bike and broke his clutch lever. And there was just a little tiny nub of it sticking out. And I remember we fought that bike trying to get it the rest of the way up that hill with basically no clutch. And it ended up when we got to the top of the hill, we kind of going through all of our tool bags and no one had a spare clutch lever. And that was kind of like, holy crap. Well, my XR650R, the hot start lever, the bolt size was very similar to the one on Dad's clutch. So we tried to put my hot start lever on there, and it really wasn't even that much longer than what was left of his clutch, and ended up, luckily, the rest of the trail was all downhill into the town of Wallace there where the fire department was. And Tom's boy Jason has an XR650L just like his and wasn't too far away and was able to bring him another clutch lever to get home. But ever since that happened, I've made it a point to keep an extra set of levers in my my tool bag as well. That's something that I didn't go over. But, other than that, just multiple tires. I'm not sure if our buddy Marcus Yonker from Ohio is watching, but that dude has the worst luck when it comes to tubes. I've watched him have to change 3 of them in a weekend when we went down to Canaan.
Yep.
And Fred had a lot of issues with his rear tube there a few years back, or was it last year? I think it was during our pre-running for the 304. He went through 2 rear tubes within like 16 miles, and there was nothing in the rim. There was nothing in the tire. It was 2 pinch flats, and they were They were not pinched in the rim when the tube was changed. It was just like a freak thing, two not good tubes.
That's something else I was going to talk about. If you get a flat, even if you think it's a pinch flat, do all you can to make sure that you haven't picked up, some 3/8 inch long, piece of metal or something you can barely see, because there's nothing worse than going through the trouble to put a new tube in it. And, it wasn't a pinch flat like you thought it was. It was a piece of metal or something that's in the tire that's going to puncture your new tube.
Yeah, I don't think some people know that either. To definitely double check your rim, double check your tire. I've seen guys that have like the rubber rim strap on the inside of the rim is kind of offset one way or the other, so your spoke head is actually poking the tube, making it flat. I've seen a guy do that and had to change the tube twice, and that was the whole issue.
You talk about catastrophic failures. I've personally only witnessed one. I was riding with Tom King, and he had one of the bearings in his transmission. The race pretty much blew up in it, and it launched it through most of the gears in it.
So I think I might have been on that ride. Did that happen at the end of White Day Creek, or
no? This happened out towards This happened out towards Philippi. We're out near like Arden. It was me, Tom, Fred, maybe AJ, but we pretty much limped it back to the sheets in Philippi, and then had Shiloh come get it with my truck, and then took it back to his house and split the cases. And it was a mess. But that kind of goes back to, there's things that can go wrong that feasibly you can't fix on the trail.
It's
what it is. I know there's some guys out there that run around with case splitters and everything else with this idea that they're going to split cases on the side of the trail and have exactly what's needed to fix it.
Right.
I've seen some two-stroke riders carry all the stuff necessary to do a top end, a new piston and rings on the side of the trail. But I mean, if I was going to travel extremely remote, like some of these European trips to the Himalayas or whatever, I would absolutely make it a point to carry spare clutch plates or something like that.
Yeah. So me being on midnight shift, not all the time, but sometimes I got some free time, and I was watching I think it was a RevZilla.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking of.
Yeah, so I watched their trip across Wyoming without taking any asphalt, which was really, really awesome. And then there was a suggested one of those guys going clear from Dead Horse, Alaska, to the very southern tip of Argentina, and all things considered, other than a guy getting hit by a car in Alaska, their trip was pretty smooth. And they paid all of this money and this planning and just, an insane endeavor to do what they were trying to do. To go, especially through the Darien Gap, which is mind-boggling. There's no road.
It's functionally impassable.
It is. It really is.
Yeah.
And if anybody going near there either goes, through the ocean around to Colombia or flies to Colombia, there's very few people in history that have ever taken any type of machine through there.
Helga, I think the guy's name was Helga Peterson, was, I think, the first guy to take a motorcycle through the Darien Gap. This was probably back in the 70s or 80s era. I don't remember if he had a sidecar on it at that point, but I do remember it being a like a twin-cylinder BMW GS. Yeah.
So all of these guys were like ex-special forces, Army Rangers, like the top of the top operators in the United States military. And you would think for all of their planning and everything that they put together, they get into the Darien Gap, and what happens? Well, you've got, multiple tribes of former Inca Indians in there that they've paid tens of thousands of dollars to help them get through.
Oh, probably tens.
Yeah.
Just tens. But anyway.
Tens. And they didn't bring spare clutch plates.
Yep.
Like
that exact same thing happened to, it was two guys traveling. I think it was through the Himalayas or something like that. And they hit a section that consists of a lot of mud. And of course, you've got bikes that are carrying the kitchen sink. And, we'll touch on moto camping gear at some point too.
Yeah.
But smoked a set of clutch plates out of the DR650, completely glazed the glaze the plates, no friction material left. They had every spare under the sun except what they needed. And
Yeah,
it took them abandoning one bike, both of them riding out to the closest town and then waiting a couple days to get what they needed. But obviously we're not doing that,
right.
just riding around West Virginia. So it's all about being conscious of, not needing to carry a spare for it because it's not like a life-threatening situation if it fails.
Yeah.
Most stuff you'll be able to limp it back to a main road and get a pickup truck to you to get a hold of. And most of the guys I ride with can vouch that if my girlfriend's home and my truck keys are available, then we will come pick it up.
Yeah.
Get it to where you need to go.
Yeah, and like Chad's saying here too, I was kind of getting to that. Yeah, they ended up abandoning one of the KLRs in the jungle, which is insane to me, just because you didn't have spare clutch plates. And that's just something so minute to look over.
Yep.
But like you say, I think a lot of that kind of depends on your terrain, where you're riding at. We're pretty fortunate here in West Virginia where, I mean, we're going to get to a road and there's probably somebody we know with a truck that can come pick you up. But
absolutely,
if you're, say, out in the Nevada desert or Death Valley in the middle of nowhere, like, you better have all your ducks in a row if you're going to try to ride terrain like that and not get stuck, because it could be life or death really quickly.
Yep, absolutely. I follow a couple guys on Adventure Rider that drive that point home constantly. That there's a couple of them that ride out there solo, and they carry pretty much gear to cover all their bases, way beyond what we would normally carry here.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know if it falls in the tool category, but if I was riding solo often, which I don't, I would definitely be looking into a GPS locator.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the spots. Yeah.
You can get a spot, the Garmin InReach or something like that. I mean, there's a huge market out there with a whole swath of options, but I would absolutely be looking into something like that.
Yeah, for sure, especially if you're by yourself. And something else to maybe consider is, like, protection. I mean, I think we're in a big enough group where we may not run into that, but you might want to carry your pew on you sometimes.
Yeah. During my time working with survey crews and the civil engineering field, it was not an uncommon occurrence, especially with the land rights guys and stuff like that, to get guns drawn on you.
Yeah.
You can definitely mitigate that by not riding, where you shouldn't be.
Right.
There's always a landowner that thinks that they own some patch of land that
it's a big problem, man.
That's always kind of I guess worried me, but it hasn't been a problem necessarily. Yeah. But it is something I'm conscious of.
Yeah, kind of on that point. Here in a couple of weeks, we're actually going to head down to in Charleston, in the capital, for the West Virginia Adventure Travel Day. Represent FDSR down there, but it's kind of what those guys fight. And I think we talked about that, a couple episodes back, as far as the state of the sport. But yeah, man, landowners get crazy sometimes, and it's best to avoid confrontations if you can. Sometimes you can't, and having something on you, it definitely kind of evens your odds. I know, wildlife's not really that huge of an issue. I think most things are terrified of motorcycles, and around where we've ridden, I've seen bears, coyotes, what have you, when we're out riding. But if you're out somewhere out west, maybe where a bear is really hungry, that you might want to have your gun on you.
Well, I had my TW200 for all of about 2 weeks. This is probably around 2019. I was over on Mon National Forest riding around. Of course, I grew up in Elkins, real familiar with the road stuff out there. Rounded a corner, up on a hillside is 2 cubs, and down in a creek about 25 feet to my right is mama looking up the hill at me. That's simultaneously the only time I've wished for a reverse gear on a bike. And that's the only time I haven't been carrying that I wish I had been, because I've spent a lot of time out in the woods hunting and stuff like that. Normally black bears are of no concern whatsoever, but they get spooky when it comes to their cubs.
Yep, definitely. I think really the only other type of failures that I've been around, getting back to our topic there a little bit. I know we were riding with Tom one day and the DR just shut off at the end of White Day Creek. I think you were on that ride with us, but it would not start no matter what we did. We tried everything. It was like it had no compression, and it was a big piece of carbon was holding the intake valve open. So that's not really something you can fix right there on the side of the road, but it's not really like a catastrophic failure. He was able to get that apart and fix it pretty quickly. And then, honestly, other than tubes, when you had your crash down at Brandywine, I remember you actually poked a little hole in the I think it was a clutch cover or stator cover, one of the two.
And so I actually broke the
it was the
I can't think of the
like the timing cover plug, wasn't it?
Yeah, the timing cover bolt.
Yeah.
A rock hit it just right, and it completely blew that thing out of there. I remember trying to, you or me or somebody trying to booger that thing, like the O-ring had split and everything, trying to get it back together with some electrical tape, and it worked good enough. But that goes back to, things that you think would never happen.
Yeah.
The ones that end up happening. But I know that most of the like deferred trail maintenance or deferred maintenance that I've had to do on the trails or whatever is typically self-inflicted. It typically stems from something that should have been caught earlier. There is one other failure that I can think of that would have been catastrophic, and I won't mention the name because, it's been mentioned enough.
There's a reason why you won the Punsac Maintenance Award at the
absolutely buddy
banquet.
Absolutely. Had a rear wheel bearing completely grenade, race and all, barely anything still holding it together. I can't remember if he did it while he was close to interstate speeds or what, but that could have been a disaster.
Yeah.
So that's any time you go to change your your tires, your tubes, whatever, check your wheel bearings. It takes literally a couple seconds. If you're feeling really frisky, you can pop the little dust cover off and put a little bit extra grease in it or whatever.
I still do that with every new wheel bearing that I get because there's very little grease inside those wheel bearings.
Tom King drove that home. We actually took both of AJ's wheels up to Tom's because he's got a race remover.
Yeah.
And pop the cover off of it, and it's like a skim coat of grease.
Yeah,
these manufacturers are putting grease in there like it's coming out of their personal bank account.
Right.
I mean, it costs very little very little time to just pop the cover off that thing with a pocket knife and just pack it completely full.
Yep. Yeah, preventative maintenance. You don't want to be that guy that's constantly out and every 5 feet you got to stop because something's wrong with your bike. Just do your due diligence, and I'm sure there's multiple checklists and stuff you can find online of what to go over. But you can get by with wheel bearing that might have a little bit of play in it or a chain that's a little bit stretched. But if you've got engine cases leaking and coolant hoses leaking, don't be the guy that comes out and does that ride and just ruins it for everybody else.
And you can get away, if we're doing local stuff, you can get away with that all day.
Yeah.
But like when we go down to Charleston for the coal fields or whatever,
make sure your stuff.
I would prefer your machine to be in tip-top shape, gone over with a fine-tooth comb. I'll say this, and my bike will be the one that messes up. That's just how the universe works sometimes. But just going over things and making sure that everything's good. I know, especially single cylinders, thumpers, make sure your bolts are tight, especially if you ride a KLR. I think we were down at Charleston and the bolts backed out of Nick's subframe and that thing looked like a springboard on the back going down. But stuff does rattle loose occasionally. A little bit of blue Loctite goes a long way, and it's just a matter of checking that stuff while you have the time to do it.
Yep. We're about an hour in here. One last thing I'd like to touch on is maybe some interesting trail fixes or repairs that might help some people down the road that you may have seen. I know one that I saw that's kind of burned in my memory is there was a guy that crashed, and I don't even remember where I saw it. It was Instagram or something, but he actually broke the very top of his throttle housing off.
Mm-hmm.
So there was nothing left in there to attach the throttle cable to. I can't remember which bike it was, but it only had the one. It didn't have a return cable. But he was able to zip tie a little tiny pair of channel locks to his throttle tube and clamp the throttle cable into the very end of the channel locks, and it just worked out perfect. He'd twist the throttle like normal, and it would pull the cable just like it used to. And that got it. It was in the desert wherever he was at, and they said that they had to get out like 65 miles to get back to the truck, and that worked. So, to me, that's something to keep in mind. You break a throttle cable or maybe even like a clutch cable, you can probably rig up something with a pair of channel locks and enough.
That's another thing to touch on. If you have a cable actuated clutch, you need to be inspecting that on a regular basis. And better yet, if you just take and buy another clutch cable and route it the same way as the one that's already on it and just zip tie it to the side in a couple of places. If you are out there somewhere and it does break, it's a 5-minute swap to go, from the one that's on it to the one you got zip tied to the side that's ready to go.
Yeah, there's definitely lots of ingenuity when it comes to storing things like that on your bike. I think I sent you the video of Mario Ramon, factory Sherco racer. He drilled holes in the bottom of his seat underneath and had zip tie loops in there, and he was able to keep like an extra clutch lever, brake lever. Yeah. And I think under his helmet, I can't remember what he put under there. It was something else, but like just little things like that, it definitely goes a long way. I've seen guys that have, I don't have it on my bike, but if you got a set of fat bars with a giant bar pad, actually cutting out the foam to put spare parts or spare sockets and what have you down inside of there, and covering it back up with that.
Something I've been kicking around the idea of is, instead of mooses, I mean, what stops a man from just using a couple of cans of PBR in each wheel? And I can't think of anything better. Surely that couldn't backfire.
Maybe if you fill them with concrete or something, that might hold up.
Yeah, I mean, there's some pretty resourceful ways to carry spares and tools on your bike. I find that a tank bag and a handlebar bag works really good, but some of these guys that run rally races and stuff like that will have spare levers, like clutch and shift levers, zip tied in various places on their bikes. Yeah. But like I said, it's just kind of one of the benefits of riding with a large group of people is having a pretty big sample size to see what typically goes wrong.
Yep.
And being able to kind of tune your kit accordingly, so you're not out there planning for like ignition system failure unless you ride a Honda for certain years. The CDI boxes on those things are kind of a mess, but I mean, it's all about having realistic expectations of what's going to go wrong and what you can and can't fix on the trail.
I think the only other catastrophic failure that I can think of involved an XR650R and a blue shop rag, which I think we went over in a couple episodes.
Oh man, that's just one of the worst.
That's definitely the worst and most interesting one that I've ever seen. So yeah, make sure your shop rags are out of your air boxes. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, tie a piece of fishing line to any shop rags that you're going to use around your air box. But man, it's easy to do stuff like that. Have your air box off and plug it with a rag or whatever, and you get called in for dinner or get a phone call from somebody and get sidetracked. And
self-inflicted breakdowns are the worst.
Yeah, there's nothing. Another thing that's awful is like looking at something and saying, "Oh, I can get another couple rides out of that easy."
Yeah, don't be that guy.
And then you go on the next ride, and it immediately, becomes a holdup for the group or whatever, and you just kind of sit there with a pit in your stomach, like, I had the chance to avoid it and didn't.
Yeah, that's Rob there, and like I said, I think that's a great idea. And Lissa says she carries a. Yep. Yeah. Anything bike specific that that may be a failure point that no one else is going to have. Just something that you definitely want to keep with you.
It's funny you mentioned zip tying the tire to the rim. There's been stages of the Dakar Rally won with zip tied tires.
Hey,
I understand they use mooses, but
I don't remember which team it was, and I think you sent it to me that the dude did that, and he was going like, oh man, I don't know, 90, 100 mile an hour across
flat
the road
out
with
full
zip ties
throttle.
on.
And there's been a guy, at least on one occasion, that's ran at least half a stage with no tire,
Well,
period, just
that's
a rim.
that's the guy I was getting to, because the tire came off again, and he had enough and took the wheel off and threw the tire in the desert, and he's still going like 55, 60 miles an hour just on the rim. Like that's a testament to whatever rim that guy was using, for sure. Yeah, it's amazing what you have to do when you have no option.
You'll be surprised at what ingenuitive solutions you can think up to when you have to.
Yep.
Like the best thing about riding in a group is everybody's got something. Chances of somebody having what you need are pretty high. That includes like being able to kind of engineer a trail fix or something like that. I know I've seen cheap wrenches bent at a 90-degree angle, using one rock as an anvil and one rock as a hammer, and then safety wiring that thing to a broken stub of a gear shift lever or something like that.
Yeah.
Brake lever. I mean, it's just a matter of whatever you can get to get out of there.
Yep. I mean, if you got to do it, you got to do it, man. Sometimes you have no option. And I think it's good if you're in a big group and something like that happens, that everybody can kind of learn from it and figure out, if it happens to them when they're by themselves, or maybe with just a couple people, like, hey, I remember fixing that this way. Let's do this. And you can get them out of there a little faster than what it took you the last time you had that issue.
Yep. I agree.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're a little bit over an hour here. I think we've kind of touched base on.
I think this horse is sufficiently beat.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed talking about tools for an hour.
Yeah, like I said, it's amazing. You just get on a subject and you don't think you've been on there that long, and you just time flies by. And
I wish we started doing this earlier in winter, because this to me, if I can't go ride, I at least want to sit around and talk about it.
Heck yeah, man. I'm with you. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Hope you guys learned some stuff. We appreciate all the comments and all the support you guys have been giving us. Definitely stay tuned for some more ideas and some more episodes. I've got a couple things on the docket. I definitely got some guys in the industry that I want to try to do some interviews with. And I'll touch base with some of those people and see if they're interested in coming on and kind of going over their stuff. And definitely guys that we know personally, and guys that have kind of helped the sport or come up with some sweet routes and some sweet GPX files to kind of keep this thing going.
You get Brian Holmes on the show.
Yeah, Brian's definitely going to be my first call. For you guys that don't know, Brian's the guy that owns Infimo's Adventure Routes and does the IMAT, and actually just came out with another route that goes through the southern part of the state a little bit. Him and Laney Hoosier from Adventure Horizons, who's put together the Tour de Coalfields and has a lot of good stuff over in Virginia as well. So we'll look forward to that, try to get these guys on, and we'll see what happens from there.
And get some guys talking about Blackwater. That's something I always want to hear more of. I wish I'd have been alive for that period of time.
I'll tell you what, if you want that, we'll definitely get Rob Alkovic on. The guy used to race Blackwater, still races a good bit of stuff, and him and Lissa are good people, man.
Yeah, I'd love to hear some more about it. So.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in, like I said, and we'll catch you all next time, and have a good evening, y'all.
Yep. Thanks, guys.